Avengers Doomsday is right around the corner, and that means there are a lot of fan favorites that are going to get axed. The stakes have never really been higher, and no one is safe. From gods to D-list characters, let's go over everyone who is or may be marked for death. Toby Spider-Man. Let's just start with the most heartbreaking one. So, there have been a lot of rumors that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is going to be returning in Avengers Doomsday. But how big is his role going to be? And most importantly, is he going to survive? Toby's death is looking plausible. I won't say it's super realistic, but it would work for a few reasons. First, Tobey Maguire might be facing off against the X-Men during the opening sequence of Doomsday in an attempt to save his universe from an incursion. Now, wait, hold up. Why would the X-Men be destroying Toby's universe? Why cause an incursion there? Well, it's simple. Doom is manipulating them. He has every reason to do this because making the heroes take each other out literally makes everything easier for him, and all he has to do is slip a few lines. Also, if they do follow the Secret Wars storyline, then Doom might be causing the destruction of several universes in order to create Battleworld. Doom at his core is someone who believes he's king, and there's no better way to show that than ruling your own planet. It's been his goal in so many comics at this point. Superheroes aren't above being manipulated, or else Civil War would never have happened, and Doom is infinitely better at screwing with people than Helmut Zemo. Plus, it would work narratively. Tobey Maguire's death would be one of the most emotional moments in the history of the franchise. This is the character that paved the way for live-action Marvel, something Tom Hiddleston admitted recently.
We're all kind of here because of Tobey Maguire in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
truly.
that film was the beginning of where we are. So,
A key part of why No Way Home was so big is that we finally got to see Toby and Andrew, as well as getting some closure on where he is in life. But that also makes him the most likely out of the three to die. Tom can't go yet. He's just come into his own as Spider-Man, with no Tony Stark or Avengers backing him up. It wouldn't make sense to kill Andrew because there's still a lot you could do with him, especially where he is as Spidey after the death of Gwen Stacy. But Toby is the only one out of the three who has things figured out, and that means he's the most likely to go.
Took a while, but we made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and MJ.
Marvel's done this before when characters complete their arc. It happened with Tony and Natasha, who sacrificed themselves, while Steve retired after completing his journey. Lastly, if the report from Deadline about Sadie Sink playing Mayday Parker is true in Brand New Day and Secret Wars, then this would be the perfect way to pass the torch. As we know, Marvel is going for the next generation angle. It's time to make way for new, younger superheroes. There's no better way to do that than to have an emotional death of a childhood favorite. Knowing there's someone else to take on his responsibility, someone with his powers, his own daughter. It would also set up incursions as the universe-ending apocalypse they've been hyped up to be.
When the boundary between two universes erodes, destroying one or both entirely.
But let's look at some of the counterfacts. Doomsday and Secret Wars are two stories that can easily work without involving Spider-Man too heavily. Alternatively, it might be too controversial with fans if they kill off a fan favorite that early in the film just for shock value. Also, there are just as many rumors that Sadie Sink might be playing Jean Grey in the MCU. And that would make sense since the MCU is trying to introduce a new version of the X-Men. Plus, Sadie herself is pretty hush-hush on the whole topic.
You never talked to a Kevin Feige or a Marvel person about this character.
No, I can't. I have nothing to say about this.
Usually, if an actor isn't in something, they shut it down pretty quickly. Brand New Day might be working as a setup for a potential Jean Grey recast, and in the comics, they've interacted in many superhero crossover events. It would have to be handled very carefully, or otherwise, fans might riot. Red Guardian. Alexei Shostakov ticks a lot of boxes for a potential death.
Avengers with the Z, there is no copyright.
Fans love him. He's a comedic character that adds a lot, but most importantly, he's on a redemption arc for something really hard to ignore. When we first meet Alexei, he's a washed-up super soldier clinging to his glory days. He's loud, arrogant, and he's not doing much with his life. Alexei even abandoned the girls he was supposed to raise, Natasha and Yelena, even letting the Red Room take them.
Everything.
sending your two kids off to a crazy Russian school for assassins? Definitely not Dad of the Year material. So, he served time in the army, but he never served as a father. Despite his name, a guardian is exactly what he failed to be for Natasha and Yelena. Now, it is true that Alexei, Melina, Natasha, and Yelena were sent to Ohio as a fake family for an undercover operation. But the bond they had was real. It's also true that Alexei couldn't have done much at the time, because if he had, they likely would have been executed. But there would be no better redemption than sacrificing himself for his daughter. It might be too cliche though, and again I feel like the writers would need to have more of a solid reason for killing a new Avenger, especially since they're just starting out.
Meet the new Avengers.
The thing is, Doomsday has to set up Dr. Doom as a multiversal threat. Thanos had 3 phases worth of buildup. But we're 2 phases into the multiverse saga, and we only just saw Doom in a post-credits scene. There's no better way to show him off than having him kill multiple beloved characters. All I'm saying is the writing would have to make sense. Bucky Barnes. The Winter Soldier is one of the most iconic characters in the MCU franchise, and that's exactly why Bucky might not make it out alive. Bucky has one of the most complete character arcs in the franchise so far. He went from Hydra's pet soldier to an upstanding superhero. Plus, he takes it a step further in Brand New World. Going from Hydra's brainwashed assassin to a US politician is definitely a unique journey. Bucky is one of the longest-running characters still active in the MCU, and that makes him perfect for an emotional, memorable death. He's Sam Wilson's closest ally, part of the new Avengers, and a seasoned hero who's reached the end of his journey. Marvel's also in a transitional phase right now, and making room for new heroes by sending off old ones who've had their story would make sense. But the biggest reason fans think Bucky Barnes might be marked for death has nothing to do with in-universe lore. Sebastian Stan's been playing Bucky since 2011, and he's been in almost every major film and a Disney series. Both Stan's career and Bucky's character have grown a lot, and he's taken on major roles in films like The Apprentice. And now, Sebastian is confirmed to be a part of The Batman Part 2, which is expected to begin filming around the same time as Secret Wars in 2026. This is the single biggest evidence that he's not going to make it out of Doomsday. Scheduling conflicts have killed many projects. Otherwise, we would have gotten Armor Wars and Blade by now. Sebastian had a 9-movie contract with Marvel, and Thunderbolts is his 9th major appearance. Plus, Stan himself has said that the MCU was only the beginning of his career, which might mean he's never intended to stick around forever. Plus, we know that Steve Rogers is going to be returning in Doomsday, and it would be perfect motivation for his character. Avenging the guy he spent 3 movies trying to save, he'd be hunting Doom religiously. So, Bucky's death would work within the broader narrative as well as perfectly tie up his character, and it would also work with Sebastian's availability as an actor. But this doesn't mean it's going to happen. Actors have filmed 2 major projects before. Isabella Merced recently spoke about filming The Last of Us and Superman at once, so it's not like Sebastian couldn't do it if he really wanted to. And contracts have never stopped Marvel. That's how they finally got Spider-Man released from the death grip Sony had on the character. Plus, if they kill off both Alexei and Bucky, that would really cripple the Thunderbolts lineup, and it would make sense to do it if they're building them up as the new Avengers. Let's hope our favorite super soldier gets a lucky break. Nightcrawler. Kurt Wagner might be coming back to the big screen for one reason: to die. Nightcrawler's one of the standout characters in X-Men United. That opening scene of him dismantling the Secret Service? It was a highlight. But after that, he vanished from the Fox X-Men timeline, and Marvel has a pattern with legacy characters. They usually bring them back for a quick joke, heroic moment, or a cameo, and then they're gone. Look what they did with Evan Peters. Nightcrawler might get a bigger role though, because he's apparently fighting Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic in the movie.
Like, I'm playing Nightcrawler again now. And then I'm sort of learning these fights. I'm like, what? Who am I fighting with? And I said, you're hitting Pedro Pascal against the head or something.
From the information we do have so far, it feels like heroes are going to be fighting against each other in an attempt to save their universes. So far, we've gone over how Doomsday can't do deaths for shock value with really important characters, but Nightcrawler? He's the one guy on the roster that you could kill to show off how dangerous Doom really is without causing massive fan outrage. Plus, his teleportation powers make him perfect for a dramatic rescue. Charles Xavier. This guy has more deaths than Iron Man has suits. So far, we've got 3 confirmed deaths for him. He was disintegrated by the Phoenix in The Last Stand. He was killed by X-24 during a tragic moment in Logan. And he was brutally eliminated by Scarlet Witch in the Multiverse of Madness. And with Doomsday, we might be getting a 4th death. The early teasers show Magneto inside the ruins of the Xavier Institute, reflecting on mortality and the end of their long struggle. Magneto delivers a really ominous line.
Death comes for us all.
It just sounds like someone's final words. Plus, it would really work with the MCU's recent trend of phasing out the old X-Men characters. That would give it room to include its own version, but I'm not sure why they need to. See, they introduced their own take on Bruce Banner, for example, and simply had him be the same character as the Incredible Hulk. But if they do go for that angle, then there's no better point in the story than Doomsday. The Fox X-Men might appear in these multiversal events as a final send-off. Does that mean we won't see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine? It might, but honestly, I think they wouldn't go that far, considering how Hugh prints money in every film he's in. Deadpool and Wolverine grossed $1.338 billion worldwide, making it the most successful R-rated film ever. What it would do is establish Doom as a top-tier enemy, because Professor X is one of the strongest telepaths on Earth. That's essentially the same as stopping time, but purely with telepathy. Plus, Marvel isn't above using Professor X as a measuring stick for new villains, because that's what they did with Wanda and Jean Grey. But there's also one more key purpose his death would serve. Right now, the Fox X-Men have no reason to really be involved in the story. If Doom kills Xavier, though, their father figure, the guy that took them in and gave them a home, they would be one of the first ones to go after Doom. As the MCU builds its own X-Men/mutant landscape, it needs to recast characters like Magneto and Professor X because the actors are really old and halfway through their contracts. I mean, Patrick Stewart is 85 now. If Doomsday really is the moment where Marvel transitions from the Fox era, then Charles Xavier's final lesson might not be something he says. It might be the sacrifice he leaves behind. Thor Odinson. This might be the last time we see the God of Thunder, and the biggest clue might just be in the teaser. Thor appears kneeling before the throne of Odin, offering what sounds less like a battle cry and more like a prayer. He asks for the strength of the Allfathers so that he might fight one more time, defeat one more enemy, and return home to his daughter. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of death flags, especially how he phrases it as fighting one more time. He might just be saying that because he's thinking about retiring and going off to raise love. That's definitely possible, but that would mean Thor's at the end of his journey as a character, and we've already been over what Marvel does to heroes who reach that point. So, what I think is going to happen is that Loki and the TVA are going to go after Doom. Now that Loki is the god of stories, he can essentially see how big of a threat Doom really is to the multiverse. I don't think he's going to do it all alone. Loki will probably call upon his brother, Thor, and other heroes to assist. This would fix a core problem with the narrative. Doom doesn't actually know about the TVA or Loki, unless he finds out through some forbidden magic or technology. He doesn't know about the one thing that could help him take over the multiverse. But if Loki and the TVA expose themselves to him, then everything's plausible. Loki versus Doom might happen, and Thor may die saving Loki. Think about it. What's one constant in Thor's life? He isn't able to save those he loves. He couldn't save Frigga or Jane Foster or even his brother Loki. He even failed to take down Thanos, which is what led to the snap. This would be his chance to finally make up for all of it. We do know that Chris Hemsworth has signed on for a couple more appearances after Doomsday, and one of them is likely Thor 5. The 5th movie could see Thor in Valhalla reuniting with all the loved ones he's lost over the years, including the original Loki who died in Infinity War. After Thor dies, knowing he saved at least one version of his brother, he gets a send-off with Odin, Frigga, Loki, and everyone else, and becomes king of Asgard. It would be a fantastic end for a legendary Phase 1 character. This way, he would also be available for future cameos, since Valhalla is essentially just another realm. Also, Thor is one of the heaviest hitters around right now. There are very few people who can match up to his power. He's going to be indispensable in the fight against Doom and will probably be on the front lines. The flip side of that is it puts him in a lot of danger too. Cyclops. Okay, let's talk about that X-Men teaser from Doomsday. That really doesn't look good for Scott Summers. He seems to be beaten and defeated on his own, with some giant creatures flattening everything in the background, letting off a final unrestrained blast. It seems like one of the first victims of Doom's onslaught is going to be the X-Men. The destroyed Sentinels, the ruined mansion, and Scott's condition in the teaser are all clues that the X-Men don't make it out alive from this one. But the biggest evidence comes from Kevin Feige himself. He stated again and again that he has big plans for the X-Men and that he wants a new roster of actors for a new generation of mutants. Plus, Secret Wars seems to be serving as a big reset for the MCU overall. And right now, the two biggest X-Men related characters are Cyclops and Professor X, not counting Wolverine, because I still don't think he's going to die. Cyclops might buy some time against Doom or die in a heroic sacrifice. We know that he's not signed on for a multi-film contract, so this is likely a one-and-done appearance. War Machine. James Rhodes has been a constant in the MCU. He's one of the oldest Avengers and Phase 1 characters, and he's been Tony Stark's best friend throughout. So imagine how it's going to feel when a man with his best friend's face ends up murdering him in cold blood. I can kind of already picture it. War Machine gets an opening on Doom, but his mask comes off and James sees Tony's face. He hesitates for a small moment, and in that split second, Doom kills him. But daydreaming aside, let's talk about the facts. He's the only Avenger without a solo project, since Armor Wars clearly isn't going anywhere. But Don Cheadle might be, considering that he's 60 now. They also don't really know what to do with his character. In Secret Invasion, it wasn't even really him. But giving him some spotlight in Doomsday and ending his run with a big emotional moment against an unmasked Doom? That would be a good send-off for him, provided his death actually helps the hero somehow. Rhodey is a really popular character with the fans, so getting some emotional agony from the character while also furthering the plot is about the best you can do with him at this point, since it doesn't feel like Marvel has any long-term plans for the character. That's our prediction for every death in Doomsday. It feels like this might be a massacre on the same level as Infinity War for our heroes. I think they're going to have their big comeback during Secret Wars, but Doomsday is pretty much going to live up to its name. It'll be an apocalypse for anyone on the side of good. Who do you think is going to die, and what death would hit the hardest?